You say you want flow, but you're stuck at the start, half lit, half dreaming, half trusting your heart. You tried to play chill, but the coals wouldn't lie. Your vision kept sparking, refusing to die. They told you to wait, to align, to receive, but waiting gets weary when you don't believe. You've journaled, you've visioned, you've saged every room, but nothing can move if you don't make it move. Still, action alone, that's a fast track to ash. The hustle won't hold if it's just chasing cash. So, what if the fuel you've been needing to find isn't more effort, but a motive that's aligned? The truth is, you're not lazy, you're just not yet lit. But once you're in flow, every step will fit. If you're ready to burn with a hunger for more, let's open the matchbook and walk through the door. This is the first of a 5-part series to move through all of the elements to get back to basics of what these different elements are that want to move and flow through us, through our business, out into our world, animate us, be in relationship, in the dance with us, so that we actually feel the multi-dimensional phenomenon that is flow. We're kicking it off this week with fire, and this one's for the ones who have been told they're too much, too ambitious, too inconsistent, or too distracted to follow through. Because I want to present to you the alternative narrative. What if you're not actually lazy, scattered, broken? What if there's actually nothing at all wrong with you? But when it comes to the fire element, you're just not lit yet. To be able to be consistently riding the warm, bright, motivating waves that are the fire element moving through you. So you end up sputtering and starting. You end up riding what feel like manic waves of inspiration, only for them to fall again because they were circumstantial. What if it's that you're not distracted? You are just in absolute right relationship with fire, moving your attention and energy around, trying to reach and find it again, like a bug to a flame. That's kind of a weird metaphor here, but like a person to a campfire, right? It draws us, it pulls us toward it. And if something that we are pursuing starts to feel dead or cold, we are naturally going to feel distracted or non-committal or inconsistent, only because we are moving, leaning, turning to find the flame and the fire again. This episode is your invitation to reframe strategy as a sacred way to position your fire, a use case of your fire, something that you need to point your fire toward so that it actually feels sacred, feels aligned, feels connected to your source. And remember, aligned fire doesn't and cannot burn you out. It actually brings you back home to yourself. So let's talk about what fuels real aligned action and what keeps your fire alive. In this episode, we are going to look at why aligned action is the flame that frees you, the difference between surface motivation and soul lit motivation, how to stop gaslighting your ambition in the name of however you've been defining flow, the real reason you stall out and how to reignite it with the devotion, why money is not evil and what happens when your fire meets your values, and how to use your natural abundance style as a spark, not a script, so you continue to feel alive. My first point here is probably going to land as a little bit of a duh, but also maybe a welcomed reminder as part of this conversation, because we've all had experiences in the past where we felt burned out, where we felt like we're forcing ourselves into actions that don't feel like ours, either because they no longer fit anymore or because we're trying to model ourselves after somebody else who is not designed like we are, or because you simply weren't honoring your natural cycles and you tried to pull when the cosmic tide said to push. Whatever it is, we've all had experiences where action has felt exhausting. and maybe we have some kind of resistance to it now. Maybe your relationship to being in the flow is being in a more passive, receptive, watery type space as some kind of compensation where you're like, well, I'm not going to push myself into burnout, into overwhelm again. I'm going to lay low, keep the flow slower, and make sure that I don't get carried away in a direction that takes me as far away from myself as I've ended up in times past. We all have our own specific story, but what I want to highlight here is a bit of a baby bathwater dynamic and duality, where, of course, it wasn't the action itself that was the problem. Aligned action is everything in terms of what makes us feel on point, lit up, alive. However, it was a matter of misalignment, a matter of misaligned action and not catching it soon enough before it carried you away. The thing is, when you are connected to your source and your vision, that elemental fire aspect of existence that is our divine aligned motivation, right? It's what connects us to the bigger picture, the bigger meaning. If you think of it as life itself and the sun and solar energy providing us the heat, the warmth, the light force that motivates us to continue on, to expand, to grow. This is all such primal stuff. It's the spark that puts anything into motion. And yours is unique. Your filter, your flavor, the way that it shows up, the visions that it connects to is very uniquely yours. Sometimes it's tricky though, because we see other people living in and being warmed in and bathed in theirs, and it feels warm to us too by proxy. And so something about it that's attractive, that looks good on them, looks good on her. I'm going to emulate and model that myself. I'm going to imitate it. For a moment, there's a high. There's always a high at the beginning when something's different, something's novel, something seems to be working or pulling us out of the trap of what wasn't working for us. But then inevitably, eventually, it stops working for us because it is not aligned with our design. That's why when you're actually connected with and aligned with your source, your vision, your unique fire tap, fire feels like freedom. It doesn't feel like pressure. It doesn't feel like we're frog in hot boiling water. It's not a heat that forces us to quicken our movement. It is a force that invites us that we can't help but want to ride in its direction. Fire is also what motivates us to act. If you are feeling in avoidance, often that is a signal that you have been forcing, not flowing. And there's a recalibration that needs to take place with your unique access to fire, because fire brings clarity. It burns off what's false, what's not true, and it initiates what's real and what's truly ours. So let's talk about the difference of those two sides of what motivates us, between the more surface motivation and the true soul-centered, soul-based, soul-lit movement. If your strategy feels driven by urgency, by comparison, or by fear, it will fizzle out like a match that we're lighting that flames up at first and then eventually goes out entirely. If you are not sourcing from within, from your access to fire, from the way that you're designed to genuinely, authentically feel lit up, it will not last. It's temporary. So it'll take you on a roller coaster ride of sometimes feeling super motivated and sometimes absolutely crashing, because all that stuff is outside in. But soul lit movement and motivation comes from the inside out. And it's often subtler and quieter, but more sustaining. In the metaphor of lighting the match and it burning out, having that intense flash and flame at the beginning, but it not lasting long at all, here we're talking about that sustainable, slow burn that's also in balance with the other elements, that has some wood, some earth to sustain it, that is in right relationship with air, that's not soggied out by water, right? There's this right relationship where you can have a sustainable flame that's warm, which is what you need sustainably. How long can you stand by a super hot burning fire? Not very long before you start to sweat or need to step away. It's that perfect temperature, that warmth that keeps you the temperature that you need to be to stay your course and warms your environment to be able to play that long game and stick around. It feels different. It does feel like a bit of urgency, at least in my experience of it, but more like that passion filled, like, oh, I just need to act on this right now. Now is the moment. Not that outside in pressure of like, oh God, I just need to get this done. I need to. Very different kinds of desire. One is forced and one is truly sourced from your own internal rhythms inside out of like, there is no other wave I would rather be riding right now. When it comes to the elements, there's no straightforward, what do you look at in your chart? Everybody's elemental composition is different, located in different places. It's so much more of a subjective and individual thing to look at your chart to see what's up with you and fire. One thing is for sure to look at your sun sign. What language, what motivation does your solar energy move through to you? What is that energetic home base through which you first met the sun? Because that's going to have such big clues for you of how your fire wants to move through you. This is something in cosmic currency that we call your CEO code. It's how we start the whole experience because you need to be centered in your CEO seat of power and leadership to be able to choose from a place of that embodied, authentic motivation where you're going next, where the transformation will lead you. When you're centered in that solar CEO seat of fire and know where your source energy springs from and through you out into your creations, any action that you take is honoring your design and so becomes a devotional act, not something that drains you. So now, how can you stop gaslighting your ambition and snubbing out your fire in the name of how you've been defining flow up until now? Because I think it is all too common to think about flow as water, the opposite of fire, and to think about flow as a much more, as I said before, receptive, passive, surrendered state. In this way, many in the spiritual world and community have mistaken stillness for safety, have favored the other side of the coin of being more settled and soft and feminine. There's been this huge, recently, historically shift of the pendulum swing back to the feminine, and especially in business, infusing the feminine principles back into business to bring us into balance so that we're not betraying ourselves, over masculinizing ourselves and our process to be able to be business owners. And that is so righteous and a sign of the times. However, we have to be mindful of not swinging all the way to the other side and losing and getting far from that balance point that motivated us to bring this part back into the mix in this way in the first place. Because avoiding your fire stifles your life force just as much as not letting the feminine, watery flow to move through you too. Here we have another baby bathwater conundrum. I've got to come up with a better, more tasteful and on brand version of that metaphor. Note to self. But for now, baby being the right relationship to the masculine element of fire in your business, bathwater being all of the patriarchal, capitalistic, bro side of business that we had to push aside to come back to the middle. So remember that your ambition, that fiery, aligned motivation to act and to expand and to turn up the heat is not a capitalist trap. It's actually the compass of your calling and meant to be positioned at the center of your chart, and so the center of you. If you do feel aligned with that, if you are an avatar when it comes to the elements and the masculine and feminine, if you identify with being a masculine, fiery person and you love that part of you that shows up and expresses into your business of feeling driven and of just being on fire and feeling on fire, the reminder here is that you are not too much. No matter what you've heard others say, you are tuned in. Fire is not the opposite of flow. It has its own flow. Water flows and fire flows. The fire flow is what gives life direction, momentum, purpose, and a very special kind of presence. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't quite feel as connected with that as I would like to. Yes, I hear you and I absolutely want that and know I need that, but I still can't seem to feel as connected with that side of myself. I still can't seem to move or feel as confident with what is motivating me to move as what motivates me to rest. If something feels off with that side of you, it might be that you are trying to act from a script that isn't yours. It might be that, like so many, and the battle that we are all partly dancing with and fighting and facing here is that you haven't been able to parse out the baby from the bathwater. You have resistance because you're not quite sure what's yours when it comes to the masculine fire side of you. That is where your zodiac abundance affirmations come in. I created this guide as a way for each sign, each of you with each of your signs, sun, moon, and rising are great ones to look at to orient your unique flavor of abundance and not somebody else's. Because if your fire has gone dim or isn't as bright as you would like it to be, it's probably not because you lack drive. It's because the path you're on isn't actually lighting you up and you're not quite sure how to get back on track. The affirmations in this guide are not fluff, they are straight fuel. You can download them for free now to find the ones that match your design, to hold them close with you, to affirm them out loud, to better align you with your path to the bright, warm, fiery relationship with abundance that you want to have. Let them remind you how your fire actually wants to move. You can download yours at cosmicbee.link/affirm. AFFIRM. cosmicbee.link/affirm. Go grab that right now. Truly, alignment is everything. It's the thing that you're not looking at, seeing, or talking about if there's a missing piece. And it's what needs to be brought into your awareness and into the picture if you want to be able to reignite your relationship with fire with devotion. The real reason that you stall out or lose your connection to it, it's not because you need more discipline. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because you need a direction to point it that actually matters to you deeply from the inside out. The fire goes out when you lose your connection from the why, the purpose of why you're doing the things that you're doing. If you're acting without actively being connected to that sense of purpose and passion and the bigger why that is behind it, that should be motivating you, if you lose that, you lose your motivation. And then you are just acting from ash, like I said in the poem, in the rap flow that initiated this episode. Devotion, that aligned action devotion piece to you and your source, your flame, is the difference between burning through and burning up because it's so hot and feels so good and you just have to act. You just have to do. And you know that shit is so good. So instead of waiting for that motivation, instead of praying for the return of it, let me be the one to remind you that you absolutely have the power to co create and build and reinforce and remain in commitment to, in observance of, in action around a rhythm that actually keeps that flame alive. You do have agency around this. You do have the power to keep that flame lit. Real quick, just in case you keep these things separate in your mind, in your perspective, in your heart, in your energy, and in your relationship with fire, I want to remind you why everything that we're talking here points to that money is not evil if you hold a belief as such. And on the flip side, show you what happens when your fire meets your values, because it is anything but evil. It is all that is good and holy in this world and in your experience. Because again, money is not the root of evil. You are not the problem. Action is not the thing to avoid. It's the misalignment that is. When your work, when the services that you provide to create the exchange for dollars to bring more abundance into your world, when that work is sourced from your truth, from what you truly feel purpose driven to offer to this world, from what lights you up to serve and support others to expand into their visions and their dreams, your income becomes a reflection of that impact. It becomes a way to play the game of becoming more and more who you are, of showing up as an instrument of the fire that wants to move through you, through your sacred work in numbers that you can actually track and work with and use as barometers to compare your now self to past versions of yourself to future versions that you are growing into becoming. Fire is how you channel your energy in this way, and money is just how it moves in the material realm. So, as long as your fire is fueling your sacred work, then let your fire free yourself to see that it is your fire that wants to fund everything sacred, holy, and that matters in your life. This shit is all connected. If you were nothing but a light being vibrating, this would be a very different conversation. But you are not. You are an earth dwelling creature here to play the game of materializing your energy through your sense of purpose, through the gifts of your design to help other people and give them the opportunity to compensate you through the value exchange of money, the neutral placeholder that you will then turn around and provide to something or someone else for something that you care as much about. This is why we say that your dollar is your vote. Where you put your money is what matters to you. If someone is putting their money with you, then you matter to them and you are doing something right. The more of it that is flowing into your world, and the more of it that you are intentionally irrigating the flow of into what matters to you, the more you are blessing up that channel of manifest material abundance known as money to keep all that is good in this world flowing. Of course, this is all in the context of having incarnated during the age of Aquarius, the beginning of a 2,000-year chapter, season, and era on this planet where we are bringing to form each of our unique individual flavors into the principle of unity through diversity. That we are entering into an age where we each need to bring our special sauce and spark to make this overall tapestry that we're weaving that much richer and more beautiful to look at. Which is why when you align your purpose, your design, your spark, that fire that animates you, and your relationship with abundance to keep it all flowing, You are able to use your natural abundance style as a spark for something new instead of a propagation of an old script that we are all ready to let go. There is no one size fits all path to abundance. That is what we are all each here to discover for ourselves, to support each other with discovering as we each move deeper and deeper into right relationship with the flow of our fire from source through us out into the world through our offerings and as part of what is charging up the flow of monetary material abundance that we're here to enjoy. And your fire might be quick and bold. My fire is in Aries. It's my Mars and Venus is the fire in my chart. So for me, my fire comes alive in the dance with other people. It is bold, it is fiery. One of my favorite ways to express it was for the decades when I would go to dance once a week and just summon that energy of fire on the dance floor between me and other people. I feel that spark to this day when I feel really in it with somebody else, when we're connecting and when we're making magic happen. Yours might be slower and steadier. You might have been the grounding presence on the dance floor or in your community where people feel like they can gravitate to rest by your warmth. These are metaphors. I don't claim to know what your experience with fire has been, and without looking at your chart, I can't tell you much about what it might become, but either way, it's yours and it's valid. When you follow your unique zodiacal flavor of fire as reflected in your chart, any strategy that you point it to becomes self-sustaining. That is its potential. So use your abundance affirmations to reconnect with that spark your way and let it lead you. If you take nothing else away from this episode, remember that times that you're just not feeling it, especially when those times seem to last way longer than you would like to, you're not lazy, you're just unlit. You are designed to oscillate through natural rhythms between a more explosive kind of fiery energy and a more inward kind of warmth, but you should never feel fully disconnected to it. That is not meant to be part of your cycle. The good news, no matter where you are right now, your spark didn't and couldn't die. It's just been waiting for the right kind of presence and fuel. If this episode stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Fan that flame, follow the pull. Go grab your Zodiac Abundance affirmations at cosmicbee.link/affirm. They're not just inspiration, they are true ignition. Your zodiac signs hold a specific way of accessing abundance. And while we could definitely go much deeper into the nuance and specificity of your codes, these affirmations are an incredible starting point to keep you closer to the flame, and they will help you to remember how close you always are to it. So start there, get lit up, and I will see you in the next one for the water code.